Welcome back to CBH4K, and this is my comprehensive review of XCOM 2. What does a comprehensive review mean? That means I'm going to review the game, the DLC, the modding community behind it, and the after effects of the game, like the sequels, the potential sequels, the effect on the genre, and the effect on the gaming sphere as a whole. And finally, I'm going to answer the question, is the game regarded as the industry standard of the genre? Now, with that out of the way, on to the review.
Excitement continues to build as city centers across the globe prepare for the 20th anniversary of Unification Day.
Thousands line up at the site of the Great Accord, celebrating the formation of the Advent Coalition.
Keeping with their promise to you.
The game was published by 2K and developed by Firaxis Games. It was released in February 2016. It was the sequel to the game XCOM Enemy Unknown, and is a part of the larger XCOM franchise that has been going since the 90s. Now let's talk about the story. I like what they did with this story here, and I'll show you the continuation of the story from XCOM Enemy Unknown to XCOM 2. XCOM 2's storyline takes place in a different way from what you were expecting, and I actually kind of liked the way they took it. So, in XCOM Enemy Unknown, there is a chance for you to fail the game. That's right. In XCOM Enemy Unknown, there is a fail state for the game. Not many games have that in their game design. Most of them sort of just have a quick cutscene, but there is a chance that you could lose the entire campaign if you don't play correctly. And XCOM 2 takes place in a failed state, where you lost the war against the aliens. And I find that very, very interesting. And now you have to lead a resistance movement. This resistance movement consists of your flying base called the Avenger. Then there's the various heads of your department who help you figure out the mystery of why the aliens are still here after all this time, and what are their new plans. There's Dr. Shin, daughter of the previous Dr. Shin. There's Dr. Tegan, and of course, Bradford. And of course, let's not forget the various soldiers who on missions have emergent gameplay that make it feel like their own mini stories happening at the same time. Now, some people don't like the fact that we lost the previous campaign and now have to fight as a rebellion instead of the standard repelling an invasion from alien forces as per usual. But I thought that was a nice addition, a nice change of pace from the standard XCOM formula. At the core of the story, it's the usual for all other XCOM games. It's based on something called emergent gameplay. Some of you are probably wondering what emergent gameplay is. Well, it's quite simple. It's complex situations in video games and board games that emerge from the interaction of relatively simple game mechanics. Basically, things that happen in-game that shift the landscape of the story, of what's happening, and pushes the game into a different direction. I'll give you an example with this clip. He's bleeding out. There's nothing I can do. He's dying. Here's our first death, by the way. We would have had a casualty-free run if that guy hadn't missed that shot. Now, I could have moved him and just taken the pistol shot and been like, yeah, I missed anyway. But I wanted to kill somebody, and a 45 is a good shot. Let's see what happens here. Well, yeah. No, you can't. Back to base, we'll have to give our soldiers some time to heal, mentally and physically. So, if you ever notice it, we're out of the story section and into the gameplay section, and it works well because they kind of blend together when you think about it. So let's move on to the gameplay. The gameplay in this game, there's two different modes of gameplay. The first up is strategic layer, where you make overarching decisions on the campaign map, such as what equipment to buy, what things to research, etc., etc. This is about big picture thinking and long-term planning for your campaign. The tactical layer, where you focus on short-term plans, such as whether or not to throw a grenade, which shots to take, and what percentage they are. Like for instance, some shots are like 45% shots, depending on the situation, in high cover, low cover, or if you're going to reload. It all depends on the situation. Now, this gameplay mode is entirely turn-based, and the strategic layer is real-time with pause. So the game gives a good and varied amount of gameplay for the player to enjoy. Overall, I found the gameplay excellent. There wasn't too much in the way of problems that I didn't feel like I could solve in the right order of turns. There are a few things I did not like about the game. For instance, the turn timers. There's a time limit on your turns in some mission. Like you can only have 10 turns to reach an objective. If you don't reach the objective, you fail the mission. But you can still clear out all the enemies and get all the resources from the map, which I thought was a nice touch. But I don't enjoy being rushed. But I know what they're trying to do. In the previous game, you were not forced to rush. So let's talk about the enemies. First up is the various Advent Troopers. The Advent Troopers are like the regular troops. They are not aliens themselves. They're more like alien hybrids, and they have a lot of special abilities that throw you off your game. Particularly the Stun Lancer. The Stun Lancer is probably one of the worst enemies you fight in this game, as they can run up and stun one of your troops, knock them unconscious, making them completely useless for the rest of the mission, unless you have a med kit that would revive them. Or they could stun them for a couple of turns, but in all cases, they like to run at your guys. So it makes them predictable, so you can set up an Overwatch. Now, what an Overwatch is basically your troops will fire at anything that moves in their direction. Play your cards right, you can set up nice little Overwatch surprises to overwhelm your enemies. Now, some of you probably think the basic Advent Trooper is not that dangerous, but in all honesty, this is a troop that always shoots at you, so it kind of works in their favor for the laws of averages. They will eventually get one of your soldiers. They will eventually land a critical hit. It's basically the rule of just shoot a bunch of times and some of your shots will land. Those that land and do a ton of damage will be devastating to the other side. And that comes through perfectly clear with the Advent Trooper. Now I could go down the entire list and tell you more about the various Advent soldiers, but I think it's better if you play the game yourself and experience firsthand what they're about. Now on to the aliens. These are actually more alien creatures from, they're from previous titles of XCOM, but they've been given a modern day makeover. Now with this modern day makeover, they also get a new set of abilities. The Advent Troopers are more or less peacekeepers, but the aliens are there to be shock troops and just take down anything that comes in their way. Case in point, the Viper. She has a ability that strips you from your cover, and then they can wrap you and tangle you. And yes, I am aware. Yes, I'm aware of how that sounds, and it sounds like Rule 34. We won't get into details of it. We just know that I know. And you're kind of gross for that, guys. I just want you to know that. You're kind of gross for that. I don't speak for everyone, but I just want you to know I find you gross. Alright, let's move on. Let's just move on. Let's not dwell on this. Why are we still talking about this? Let's go. It also has a poison ability that slowly kills your troops, and she kind of uses it as a grenade if your guys are in high cover or there's a bunch of them bunched up. So you might want to keep your troops separated. Same with the Muton. They have a grenade that they throw at you in case you are bunched up. They also have a counter to any and all melee abilities. So you want to be very careful when you're doing melee with them. And they have a tendency to run up and do melee with you as well. They can also shoot at you with their gun, because while their gun does have a bayonet and they do like to use melee on you, they often prefer to shoot you as well. So you run the gambit of not knowing what the Muton is going to do. And they also have a bit of an armor. So I find this game very interesting in that it's always putting you different scenarios in the tactical layer, making you think about each action you're taking, and making you realize just how careful you have to be in every single move. But at the same time, you have to take a lot of risks in order to move to your goal, because again, the turn timer, it makes you take more risky movements or tactics. And even without it there, you still have to do some risky tactics, because let's be honest, the game will set you up into horrible positions so that you will have to come up with creative solutions on the fly. Now we talked about the tactical layer, let's talk about the geoscape. That is the name of the strategic layer, and it has many ins and outs to it. Chief among them is the research tree. Now, in order to advance through the research tree, you're going to need various things collected from your enemies in the tactical layer. So it involves you essentially using both of the systems blended together in order for you to advance to higher tiers on the research tree, and enabling you to get better tech for your soldiers, as well as better ways to secure the geoscape and get more resources for your efforts to stop the alien menace. And by the way, you want to advance your technology as quickly as you can, because the aliens are advancing their tech. So they're starting to field higher tier units as the weeks and months go by. So pretty soon you'll be fighting some of their worst units, and if you just have basic equipment, well, then you're just hosed. The game doesn't wait for you, and I like that about XCOM. The game evolves, whether you're evolving with it or not. So you have to keep advancing in order to keep up. And then of course there is the game's end game, which has a timer on it. So if you're taking too long, or if you don't finish it in time, the timer goes off and, well, you lose.
Serving as our demolitions experts, the Grenadiers provide heavy ordnance delivery whenever and wherever we need it.
All right. Probably the best aspect of the gameplay in this game, to me, is the customization. Now, the customization adds so much to this game, because each soldier can be customized cosmetically and with certain abilities they get on level ups. It has a nice mix of RPG in there to give you a sense of progression. But the most important thing you have to realize about this game is a little thing called permadeath. Now, permadeath basically means every time a soldier's HP reaches 0, then they are dead. Permanently, no revives, they are gone. They get put on the memorial wall, and that's the end of them. Goodbye, sweet prince, or princess, it depends. Unless, of course, you save them to the character pool. The character pool saves previous characters of previous campaigns, so you can play them again in the future. I really like that feature. It gets a big old thumbs up from me. Yeah, let me just say I really love permadeath. It adds a sense of finality to every single one of your decisions. You feel like your choices matter. I really like permadeath. It really adds a sense of finality to the game. And I enjoy it. Even though it makes me miserable from time to time after I tirelessly customize a soldier, then have them die, where the game just randomly decides to kill them because, well, it can. And it will do so relatively easily. Now, you can prevent this with good tactics, like I said before, but good tactics don't always protect you. Sometimes you just have bad luck. Overall, the presentation was excellent. The voice acting was solid. The lines weren't too corny. The graphics displayed everything well. Customization was done supremely well, as I mentioned before. Each tech level sounds different from the other. Ballistic rifles sound different from mag rifles, all giving a sensation of scaling and power. Gone is the 1950s and 60s B-movie aesthetic of the old game. Instead, a more modern look to the game is put forth. And that might be a turnoff for some people. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was actually a nice change of pace. Presentation is tricky because it's more or less what people find overall appealing. And I found that this gameplay meshed well with the presentation. And I think that's more important than anything else.
Control.
This has been a terrible situation for me. Sorry. This is the first squad, by the way. We're not running into the multiple squads. The game's best attribute is that it never feels unfair. It always feels like the player has a good chance, and it always feels like it's the player's fault when things go wrong. Because you made the bad decision to put the guy into poor cover. You made the bad decision to take that 45% instead of the 75% chance. You made the decision not to research magnetic weapons. Instead, you researched something else on the research tree. And now it's cost you dearly. This is a big difference from when the game cheats you. If the game beats you by being unfair, you take the power out of the player's hands. So it eliminates any sort of development or learning with the game. It ruins any sort of connection the player has to playing the game, because if they're just going to lose at random, then they don't even bother at times. This is a really, really good game. Thumbs up on it. All the way.
There were 3 resistance groups that we consider a legitimate threat to Advent. Together, they'd make one hell of a fighting force. Too bad they hate each other.
So let's go into the DLC. Now, the DLC, I'll be giving up thumbs up or thumbs down through each and every single one of the DLC. Hey, and after hearing my recommendations, you still want to buy the DLC, all the DLC, even the ones I don't recommend? Hey, you do you. It's entirely up to you. It's your money. You spend it however you want to. If you really like this game and you really love this game and you want to own all the DLC to it, then I perfectly understand, because I have all the DLC for it too. So, no judgment here. On to the review. So, let's begin with the very first DLC. Anarchy's Children is a cosmetic DLC, and it's not well liked either, as are most cosmetic DLCs. XCOM is about customizing your soldier, and the game has a bunch of customization options on the DLC, and I can understand people just sort of like not liking the very idea that this DLC exists, and I have to agree with them. Taking away customization from the game, limiting customization in any game is a bad idea, especially a game that its bread and butter is customization, and it's an even worse idea when you put it behind a paywall. So this DLC gets a thumbs down. Alien Hunter is the first real DLC with bosses and new items and new types of equipment. The big aspect of this DLC was the alien rulers. The alien rulers were like mini bosses. They were pretty tough to deal with at launch, but once you figured out that you can just put some ads on them, or you can have other ways to incapacitate or slow them down, most effectively at that was the Alien Hunter weapons. Now, the Alien Hunter weapons were also part of the DLC. They were enhanced super weapons that help out in dealing with the alien rulers. But my issue with the Alien Hunters, I don't too much care for the rulers. I feel like the rulers are an inferior boss fight, especially when you compare it to what's coming later on in this list. I'm going to have to give this a thumbs down, even though I like some of the equipment you get with it, some of the weapons. I'm going to have to still give it a thumbs down. I like a semi thumbs down. I kind of want to give it a thumb up, but it's I feel like there's certain things that should have been added to it. Like they could have added more missions, more maps to the game, more equipment. It just feels like an incomplete DLC to me. Shin's Last Gift. Now this is a long story mission with this DLC, and it has a pretty cool boss fight at the end. I have to say, this is probably one of the more interesting DLCs. It adds a new unit in the form of a Spark. It has a nice set of abilities. Now some of them aren't that great, and I honestly think they could have worked on the Spark unit a little bit more. But honestly, for what it is, I'll give this a thumbs up. Mostly because Shin's Last Gift had a nice story to go with it, and I kind of liked the story better. It felt more like a part of the XCOM mythos. Thumbs up from me.
To the roof. Thank you for announcing your next move. And I am the flawed program.
Well, yeah, I mean, Resistance Warrior Pack, another DLC that was cosmetic, and you know how my feelings are already, so I won't go into details again. Thumbs down. War of the Chosen. Yes. Yes. Expansion packs. And expansion packs need to make a comeback. This expansion pack was so good for the game, the time that it was released, and still is great for the game. Where do I begin? Well, let's begin with the Chosen. The Chosen are a new sort of boss enemy. Think alien rulers, but better. Each one has different weaknesses and strengths, and it's based from campaign to campaign, and they get stronger as the campaign goes on. So they get more strengths, they get more abilities, they're much more difficult to deal with, unless you take on a special mission to get rid of them. And finally, they have some good voice lines that are very, very annoying. And I like that, because it feels like, for those of you who haven't played Shadow of War or Shadow of Mordor, first of all, you're missing out on a lot. But to have them smack talk, it reminds me a lot of the orcs. The orcs were very, very disrespectful to you. They really just came up into your face, called you man filth, and just went down a diatribe of insults.
Keep on trying, and I'll keep on killing you, and killing you, and killing you, and killing you, and killing you! Shut up.
You're a bloody idiot, coming back at me! I'll smash your head in, again!
And I like that, because it got me amped up to play the game more, because I want revenge on these orcs. So I'm curious to see what they will do next to sort of sabotage me. And that's what the Chosen act like. They act like a very effective enemy on the campaign map and in the tactical map. So you feels like you're fighting them all over the place. We also get new hero classes in the form of Resistance, and you also have the Resistance ring where you have to keep the various factions happy. I like it. It adds a nice touch, a nice flavor to the campaign as you're trying to suss out the best ways to keep everything balanced as you move forward. And you also get new units as a bonus. These new units are very powerful. However, you're relegated to just 1 or 2 per faction, maybe 3, depends on missions you complete for them. Using the Resistance ring, I don't want to get too involved. I'm telling you what's on this expansion pack, because I honestly want you to play it for yourselves. This is a really good addition to the game. I highly recommend it. It gets a big old thumbs up. Go out and play it.
Full of surprises, aren't you? Soon to be full of holes.
The Tactical Legacy Pack is the final DLC for this game. It's unfortunate, but it's true. This is the end of the line for XCOM 2. The Tactical Legacy Pack is basically a bunch of revamped maps from XCOM Enemy Unknown, and also it has a few other features to it, like more like these legacy weapons that you can get by completing these legacy missions that you can do separate from the campaign. They have no over campaign, so it's just tactical missions, which is a nice change of pace. And it's narrated by Bradford, so you're gonna have a nice trip down memory lane with it. And I won't spoil too much about it, but it has a nice story to go with it. Plus, with how do I? No, let's just say the ending is well-meaned. Thumbs up.
I can handle that.
Currently, the only way to buy any of the first 3 DLCs is with a special pack called the Reinforcement Pack. The Reinforcement Pack has all 3 of them. You can get it on a pretty decent sale. Even though I don't recommend 2 of the 3 first DLCs, I still say that Shin's Last Gift is still worth the pickup of those first 3 DLCs because it's a solid one. Now, if you want my unbiased opinion, I think pretty much all the DLC for XCOM 2 is solid, and you can get it. Even the ones that were cosmetic, I know I gave them a thumbs down, but they're still good, they're still okay. I strongly recommend War of the Chosen. If you get no other DLC for this game, then get that expansion pack. War of the Chosen, it's solid in every regard. Really a good addition to the game. But I would first play the game, without any DLC, without any mods, just playing, and see if you like it. Then think about getting DLC. That's my final recommendation.
Using 2 guns simultaneously requires agility, reflexes, and a lot of special training. This fighting style has an unrivaled ability to create an unstoppable barrage of attacks.
Well, we're on to the modding community, and well, dude, this gets a thumbs up, okay? It's robust and very active even to this day. The most famous mod being Long War 2. Everyone loves it. And the developers of this game actually love Long War 2. They enjoy it. They say that their game has become a tutorial for Long War 2, and that's probably a fair statement. I've never played Long War 2. I'm sort of like I got things I gotta take care of, man. If I start playing Long War 2, I will never, ever stop playing. I'll be there all day, every day. Just playing Long War 2. Is that what you guys want me to do? Just play Long War 2 all day on this channel? Don't say yes to that. You know what will happen if you say yes. I will do it. It is not an empty threat. That's a fact. Anyway, joking aside, modding community, it's wonderful. And it's done by the people who are playing the game. Give yourselves a round of applause, and I mean that.
Heathen.
Well, let's get to the after effects of the game. One of the big after effects is the sequels, as we all know. And the only sequel to this game so far is Chimera Squad. Some people are waiting for XCOM 3, but by the sounds of it, we're going to be waiting very, 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 very long time. So I say we all just get comfortable with the idea that we're not going to see anything to do with XCOM 3 for at least a couple more years now. Depends on what Firaxis is going to prioritize in the future. But Chimera Squad was an okay addition to the XCOM mythos. I like saying it like that. Mostly because I think that it's good to show what happened after the war with the aliens. It's sort of like we won this time and we've forgotten. We have to sort of live with the surviving invaders and like kind of acclimate to our way of life. I found it an interesting idea. Another semi-sequel, I would say, would be the Midnight Suns. But it's not like XCOM in any way, but it's sort of like the team of who worked on XCOM worked on this game, and it's okay. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't grab me like XCOM grabbed me. XCOM grabbed me and never let go. Midnight Suns, like, sort of was into it, but I'm not really a card game guy to catch my drift. Now, as for the whole of the genre, a lot of games use the XCOM-like idea, which you have a tactical layer and a strategic layer. There's a number of them that are coming up right now. For instance, Crown Wars, that's going to be out pretty soon. Another one's Alien Dark Descent. All of which and more can be found featured in various videos, mostly in my XCOM-like series that I have on this channel. Go ahead and check those out. You won't be disappointed. You'll find a lot of them in case you like games like this and you want to see more of them. Then go check it out. Overall, I think the gaming industry has changed a great deal since XCOM 2's release. I mean, XCOM Enemy Unknown was the first game in the series, and the changes that it implemented were felt by the gaming industry once it was released. But XCOM 2, I think, really added to it. It sort of finished it off. It sort of continued the thinking. Like, the two of them combined worked well. And both of them being successes, that always sets a trend. Yeah, XCOM 2 did change a lot about the gaming industry, and a lot of it for the better. After all these years, XCOM 2 is still considered one of the greatest tactical games out there. It's still in many top 10 lists. It's still widely considered one of the best out there. And quite honestly, it deserves it. There have been many games I have done for XCOM likes that have taken cues directly from XCOM. Alright, that's good. Even though I didn't kill him, I'm okay with just doing a little bit of damage. Yes! Alright. We're taking the fight back from him. Before the fight was all them. And a little bit like less. Okay. So, the conclusion to this whole thing is that XCOM 2 was awesome. And it gets a big old thumbs up from me. Now, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, then hit the like button. It lets me know that people enjoy this type of content, and I'll be much more willing to do more of this type of content in the future. Because, quite frankly, if nobody likes or even watches this video, then what's the point of even doing it or putting it up? But if you all give a bunch of likes, then I will be inspired to do more like this. And if you want to see another game reviewed on this channel, then go ahead and put it in the comments. I will take it under consideration. Again, it's not a yes or no, it's just I'll take it under consideration. Thanks for stopping by. It's been a pleasure.